You are about to watch one of the most talked about moments in recent congressional history. And if you have not already, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because what you are about to hear will leave your jaw on the floor. There are moments in American politics that stop you in your tracks. Moments where you forget you are watching a formal hearing and feel like you are watching a heavyweight boxing match. Moments where someone walks into a room carrying the weight of history, grace, and pure intellect, and uses it all to dismantle someone standing right in front of them. This was one of those moments. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a Texas Democrat, a former public defender, a black woman who has spent her entire career fighting for the people the system tries to forget, walked into that committee hearing room and did something that left the entire country talking. She did not just answer Jim Jordan's questions. She did not just push back. She dismantled him. Word by word, fact by fact, with a calm and confidence that made Jim Jordan look like he had never prepared for the possibility that someone would actually fight back. And the moment it happened, the moment Jim Jordan went completely speechless, the clip spread across every platform in America. People who had never watched a single congressional hearing in their lives were suddenly sharing it with their families, texting it to friends, playing it over their dinner tables. Because it was not just a political moment. It was a human moment. It was the kind of moment that reminds you that real courage, real intelligence, and real dignity still exist in places of power, and that sometimes the people who are supposed to be silenced are the ones who end up speaking loudest. So let us go back to the beginning. Let us understand exactly who was in that room, what was at stake, and why this moment became so much more than just another Washington argument. Jasmine Crockett did not arrive in Congress by accident. She grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, raised with a strong sense of justice and a deep awareness of what inequality looks like in everyday American life. She went on to become a defense attorney in Texas, not a corporate lawyer, not a lobbyist, not someone who spent their career chasing money and power. She spent her years defending people who could not defend themselves. She learned how to think on her feet, how to read a room, how to find the truth buried under layers of noise and misdirection. By the time she ran for Congress and won her seat representing Texas's 30th congressional district, she had already spent more than a decade doing something most politicians never do, actually working in the system they claim to want to fix. She came to Washington as someone who had sat across from prosecutors who tried to bully, intimidate, and steamroll her. She came as someone who had learned that if you know your facts and you believe in what you are saying, no amount of bluster from across the table can shake you. That background, that lived experience, is exactly what made what happened in that committee room so powerful. Because Jim Jordan is not a gentle man. He is loud. He is aggressive. He dominates hearings through sheer force of volume and repetition. He interrupts. He talks over people. He uses the authority of the chairmanship like a battering ram. And it almost always works. Almost. Jim Jordan, the Republican congressman from Ohio and chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, has built his entire public profile on confrontation. He is known for his open collar, his rolled-up sleeves, and his willingness to go after anyone sitting across from him with a relentless, almost theatrical aggression. He once coached college wrestling, and he runs his committee hearings the same way, like a match where his goal is to pin the other person to the floor before they can get their footing. For years, it worked. Witnesses fumbled. Officials stuttered. Democrats sitting at the table with him often seemed caught off guard, unsure of how to respond to someone who seemed completely unbothered by facts, context, or decorum. But here is the thing about people like Jim Jordan. They rely on the other person being unprepared. They rely on the flinch, the pause, the moment of self-doubt. They count on you to not have done your homework. And Jasmine Crockett had done her homework. The hearing itself was focused on what Republicans were framing as political bias in the justice system, their ongoing attempt to cast doubt on legal proceedings against figures tied to the Trump administration. Jordan, as chairman, was in his element. He had a clear script. He wanted to make Democrats look defensive, look like they were protecting corruption rather than upholding the law. And he started in his usual fashion, pressing, demanding, trying to back witnesses and colleagues into corners with loaded questions that were designed to embarrass rather than illuminate. But when it was Crockett's turn, something shifted in the room. She did not come in hot. That is the first thing you need to understand. She did not shout. She did not pound the table. She did not perform outrage for the cameras. She came in the way a surgeon comes in, quiet, precise, absolutely certain of every move she was about to make. She looked at Jordan with the kind of steady calm that only comes from knowing, deep in your bones, that you are right, and the other person knows it too. Jordan made his first mistake when he tried to dismiss her. He interrupted her early in her remarks, not even a full sentence in, and tried to redirect the conversation the way he always does, talking over her with that booming Ohio voice, clearly expecting her to either defer to him or get flustered. What he did not expect was for her to stop, look at him directly, and say with complete composure that she was not finished, that she had the floor, and that if he would give her the respect of letting her complete a thought, she would be happy to engage with whatever he had to say after. The room went still, because nobody does that to Jim Jordan, not like that, not calmly, not with that particular brand of quiet authority that communicates something louder than any raised voice ever could. The other members of the committee exchanged glances. Staffers looked up from their laptops. Jordan himself, and this is the part that made the clip go viral, seemed to genuinely not know what to do next. The bluster evaporated. The momentum he had built over decades of steamrolling people hit a wall, and he did not have a plan for what to do when the wall did not move. And then Crockett spoke. And what she said was something that many Americans had been waiting to hear said out loud, in that room, in that setting, by someone with the standing and the knowledge to say it effectively. She laid out, methodically and clearly, exactly what was happening in the hearing. She named the pattern, the use of congressional hearings not as genuine fact-finding exercises, but as political theater designed to generate clips, manufacture outrage, and muddy the waters around legitimate legal proceedings. She spoke about what it means to use the machinery of government to pursue personal vendettas, while millions of Americans are dealing with real problems that Congress is refusing to address. She talked about communities that have been waiting for action on housing, healthcare, and wages, real, tangible issues that affect real people, while committee time is consumed by what she described as a coordinated effort to rewrite the record of what happened in America. She did not just criticize, she documented, she cited specifics. She connected the arguments being made in that room to a broader pattern that she laid out with the precision of someone who had prepared for exactly this moment, who had anticipated every possible counter-argument and had answers ready for all of them. And then, and this is the moment the cameras caught in full, she turned to Jordan and asked him a direct question. A question about the substance of what he was alleging, a question that required a specific, factual answer, not a talking point. Not a performance, an actual answer. Jim Jordan opened his mouth, and then he closed it. And then, for a long moment that felt much longer than it actually was, he said nothing. That silence. That one pause where the most aggressive Republican chairman in recent congressional history simply did not have a response. That is what the country heard. That is what went viral. That is what people played again and again, not because it was cruel, not because it was a cheap shot, but because it was true. Because Crockett had asked the kind of question that exposes the difference between someone who is performing at a hearing and someone who is actually there to pursue the truth. And the silence answered the question more honestly than any words Jordan could have offered. When he did recover and begin speaking again, his response was noticeably different in tone. The volume was lower. The certainty was gone. He pivoted as people do when they cannot answer a direct question to a broader point, something more general, something that sidestepped what she had actually asked. But it was too late. The room had already shifted. The people watching had already seen it. And Crockett, without gloating, without performing triumph, without raising her voice a single notch, simply nodded and said that she appreciated the response, but that it had not actually addressed what she had asked. It was a master class. Not in aggression, not in performance, in preparation, in calm, and in the kind of moral clarity that makes people stop and listen even when they do not agree with everything being said. The clip moved fast. Within hours, it was on every major platform. Conservative commentators tried to frame it as a partisan attack. But here is the remarkable thing, many people who watched it did not respond to it through a partisan lens. They responded to it the way you respond to watching someone do their job with extraordinary skill. The comment sections were full of people from all across the political spectrum saying some version of the same thing, that they had not seen someone handle Jim Jordan like that before, that they did not know who she was before that clip, that they wanted to see more of her. Because what Crockett demonstrated in that room was something that transcends party. It is something that the 45 to 65 generation, in particular, understands in a deep and personal way, because they have seen it before, in different rooms, in different settings. They have seen the person who is supposed to be easily dismissed walk in prepared and walk out unbeaten. They have lived long enough to know that the loudest person in the room is very rarely the wisest. And they have seen enough of American politics to know that a moment of genuine accountability, a moment where the powerful are actually held to an answer, is rare enough to be remarkable when it happens. Crockett's colleagues in the Democratic caucus were quietly electrified. There had been frustration for months, years, about how to handle Jordan in these settings, how to not play into his theatrics while still standing firm on substance. What Crockett demonstrated was one answer to that question. You do not fight theatrical aggression with more theatrical aggression. You meet it with the one thing it cannot overcome: quiet, ironclad preparation and the willingness to simply hold your ground until the other person reveals that they have none. In the days following the hearing, Crockett's name trended nationally. Interview requests came in from every direction. She handled them all the same way she handled the hearing, directly, without bluster, without false modesty. When asked what she was thinking in the moment, she said something that a lot of people found surprisingly straightforward. She said she was just doing her job, that she had prepared, that she knew what the questions were likely to be, and she had done the reading, done the research, and walked in ready. She said that she did not think of it as a confrontation so much as an opportunity to make sure the record was accurate. And that if the chairman did not have an answer to a factual question, the country deserved to see that clearly. That answer, that simple, undramatic framing of what she had done, probably said more about her character than the exchange itself. Because the temptation, after a moment like that, is to claim the victory loudly, to turn it into a brand, to put the clip in a campaign ad and fundraise off it. Many politicians do exactly that. Crockett seemed more interested in the substance than the spotlight, and that is a rare and genuinely impressive quality in any public official at any level. Jim Jordan, for his part, said very little publicly about the exchange. His office did not issue a statement. He did not go on television to walk through his version of what happened. In Washington, that kind of silence usually means something. It usually means that the other side knows they came out of a situation poorly, and that the best move is to let it fade rather than extend the news cycle by defending yourself. But it is hard to let something fade when the clip keeps getting shared, keeps getting shown on evening news programs, keeps getting referenced in opinion columns. And so the exchange lingered in the national conversation in a way that very few congressional moments do. For a lot of Americans, this moment meant something beyond politics. For Black Americans, and particularly for Black women, watching Jasmine Crockett in that room carried a weight that words do not fully capture. There is a long history in this country of Black women being dismissed, talked over, underestimated, and then blamed for whatever happens next. There is a history of their competence being treated as a surprise rather than an expectation. And to watch Crockett walk into that room, one of the most hostile rooms in American government, presided over by a man whose entire method is intimidation, and emerge from it with Jim Jordan sitting in silence, was not just a political moment. It was something older and more important than that. It was a reminder of what happens when someone who has been told their whole life that they should defer or be quiet or wait their turn decides not to. And for older Americans who have watched the long arc of this country's political life, who remember other moments when institutional power met its match in the form of a single prepared and principled person, the resonance was deep. They have seen these rooms before. They know what they are designed to do, how the dynamics work, who is supposed to win, and they know what it looks like when someone refuses to follow the script. This is what makes Jasmine Crockett's exchange with Jim Jordan more than a viral moment. It is more than a talking point for one party or the other. It is a document of something real, something about what it looks like when accountability is actually pursued, when preparation meets aggression and does not blink, when the question is asked and the answer or the silence tells the country everything it needs to know. Hearings happen every week in Washington. Most of them go unnoticed. Most of them produce nothing that anyone outside the building remembers or repeats. The ones that are remembered are the ones where something genuine happened, where the performance stopped and the reality showed through, where someone forgot to pretend or someone else refused to pretend, and for a moment the American people saw the thing clearly. This was one of those moments. And it will be remembered, not because of who shouted loudest, but because of who was prepared, who stood firm, and who asked the question that made the room go quiet. And if that does not remind you that what we do in these institutions matters, that the people we send to represent us matter, that preparation and principle and courage are not abstract values but practical tools that produce real, visible results, then nothing will. America needs more moments like this one. More people willing to walk into hostile rooms, do the work, hold the line, and let the truth speak for itself. More representatives who understand that their job is not to perform for cameras, but to pursue real answers to real questions on behalf of real people. And more moments where the country pauses, watches, and sees, clearly, unmistakably, what accountability actually looks like. Jasmine Crockett gave us that, and Jim Jordan in his silence confirmed it. If this story moved you, if it gave you something to think about, please do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now, so you never miss a moment when real courage shows up in Washington. These are the stories that deserve to be told and shared and remembered. We will see you in the next one.